Hello everybody and welcome back to Mackenzie Woodworking. So our project today is a beaver tail canoe paddle. It's a laminated one and it's a beaver tail style. The two most popular are beaver tail and otter. The difference between them is that a beaver tail is wider on the bottom, an otter tail is tapered on the bottom and fatter in the center. A beaver tail is more of a power paddle, and you can make the bottom as wide as you want for as much power. So here I am laying it out, and my uh, base measurement is 5 3/4, so that's the width of my paddle on the bottom. So I've just made a pattern, and I made a half scale pattern and then doubled up and then cut out my pattern on a 1/4 inch plywood, as you can see. So I've laminated. So the main stem that I go through is I cut pieces of wood that are 1/4 inches thick, and I have 5 pieces, so you have 1 1/4 inch, and that's my main stem that I bring all the way through the paddle and all the way to the bottom. And this paddle is made of cypress, yellow cedar, and cedar, no knots, clear. And I made sure that they're edge grain too. They're not flat grain, they're edge grain boards, which adds a tremendous amount of strength. So I'm just power planing it down here. To get it close to the surface. And what I use is why I go 5 boards is the center board is my mark, so I'll taper off both ways. I'll go towards the outside of the board, and what I'll do is I'll leave the bottom of the paddle. It will be square. I won't do the curve on the bottom until I'm done the planing, because I want to plane to the outside edges. So here I am just using a small bench plane, and it's important that it's sharp. And I'll sharpen it a couple of times through the process. And now I'm just going to lay out my pattern. And like I said, the bottom I leave square so that I can hold up the pattern and I can see where I am. Here I am just sharpening up my blades and making sure that they're good and sharp. And so what I've done is cut a couple of pieces that I can lay in the bottom, because I don't want the paddle to be rocking back and forth. And I like to use just a bit of hot melt glue, and I can just pin that on and they'll snap right off. And now when I turn it around, it's good and stable while I'm trying to plane it. And I've got a dead man on the other end to stop the paddle from being pushed through. So I work on the paddle first before I worry about the handle portion of it. And this one is 54 inches long. I bring it between the chin and the neck. That's just showing the bandsaw, so I took it over the bandsaw and cut the pattern out. And then, like I was saying, I keep the bottom square, and that's so that I can see the oval that we want to create. And then before I start cutting the side wings of the paddle, I mark a center mark all the way through with a marking gauge. And this is just a small groove in it. And this will stay, and then I can bring it down to about a 1/8 of an inch on either side of that mark. So I'll constantly check that to see where I am on my planing, and to make sure that it's lateral to the shaft. And now just the process of shaving, and I'll start at the top, and that's 1/4 inch center board is a good reference for me, and I know I have to go right and left of that board. So here's a video of some of the shaving, so expect, if you like planing, this is a good trial and error thing to start, but make sure your blades are sharp. I was constantly checking my blade to make sure that it was sharp through this, and only go in the one direction. And then when I want to take off more, what I'll do is I'll use a bigger plane and take off more materials, but I can go for my center on the outside. If you notice that I don't go over the center mark, And I start on the outside wing and I'll work in. And this will give me a good balance. And it's important that you constantly check to make sure that you're not going down too much. The edge grain cedar though planes up nicely. Now I'm on the other side, and I'm just using a smaller plane to take off more material. And what I'll do is just use this to get it down flat, and then I'll go over to the smaller hand plane again. As you can see, the importance of having that center line all the way down through. If you're having a solid piece and you're not doing a laminated handle, what you can do is just put a line down the center of it, either with a piece of tape or a pencil mark, and then you can follow that back and forth. It's pretty important as you're developing the shape of the blade. And then I constantly flip the blade back and forth and back and forth. I don't try and get it all at once. So I got the blade shaped out the way I want it, and I brought the handle down. I like a little bit bigger handle. I don't like a smaller handle on a canoe handle. And the top, I like building a square top with a notch for my thumb. And I find that a rat tail file works best for this. So I cut out the shape that I was happy with. It's a bit of a badge shape. And what I'll do is just fine tune the shape with a rat tail file. And I'll keep going back and forth until I can get what's comfortable. And you can see how it locks in your thumb and it stops it from going down. And then I'll just keep following around and keep shaping it. And I've made some round dowels, and I've wrapped that with 120 sandpaper, and I'll sand that all out to shape as well and put a groove in it until I'm happy with my hand. If you're doing one of these, they're a very personal thing, a paddle. I know everybody gives sizes and what they do and everything, but you really have to hold it in your hand. What I do for the size too, where I start the shaft at the top of the blade, sit in a chair and just hold a broom handle, and wherever you're comfortable, and that's where your mark's on. My paddle is 28 inches, so from the bottom to the top. If you notice the bottom, it's rounded now. I did that once. I was happy with the shape of the paddle. And now I just hand sand it. I start with 80, and then we worked all the way up to 220. And the same on the shaft, 220. I only do 180 on the very top of the handle. I wanted the top of the handle to be a little bit coarser. So here's after one coat of spar varnish. I'm doing it in spar varnish. In the spar varnish, I thin 20% the first coat. And you really have to make sure spar varnish is up to temperature. It was about 72 degrees, 73 degrees that I brought the temperature of the can of the material up to, and then left it overnight. I have a paint room, so I put a eye-ring in the top of it and hung it from the ceiling so that I could coat it. And so this is the base coat, and then I'll take it over and give it another coat. It eventually had 7 coats. That's including the primer coat, primer sealer, which is this one. And then the very last coat I thinned by 20% as well. It goes on quite thin, and that's after doing micro sands on it. I sand between each coat, and that's a micro sand paper, so that would be about a 1500. And you can see we're in the paint room now, and I've got it hung, and I'm just I'm putting this on with a brush. I have spray equipment and stuff, but I don't like spraying them. I like putting some material on them. And I don't agree with, or I should say not agree, everybody wants to do their own, I guess. I don't cover them with epoxy mat or cloth. because if you get moisture that comes in through the top of the handle or whatever, or if you're leaving it outside, it can't escape the bottom if you epoxy and cover it in mat, and you're adding a lot of weight to it, and you're not getting a really smooth paddle unless you spend a lot of time ferrying it out. And wooden paddles have been around for a long time. So there we are. We're out at the Canoe. The dog's all ready to go. So the length of this again is 54 inches. The paddle portion is 28 and 5 3/4 wide at the base. And this is a beaver tail. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please subscribe, and I'll leave you with some pictures of the area. Thank you again for watching the video, and thank you to everybody that subscribed. I'm just leaving you some pictures of our area. We're on Vancouver Island, some pictures of the dogs and some geese. The dog's more interested in a rock than the geese, and some pictures of our harbor. Thanks again.